Okay, yeah, well, my presentation, the presentation that I had prepared will take only 3 hours, so we're a bit pressed for time as well. This presentation being about ransomware and actually why everybody should care. I'll come back to that later and demonstrate to you that it's not only an IT thing to be solved and to be countered in the world at large. Ransomware, yeah, actually it's almost a sort of a hobby horse of mine, but it seems also to be a hobby horse of many in the adversary side of the business. Ransomware, it's about breaking into any organization, their systems, be they public or private organizations, and then ransoming all the data that you might have. And well, as you see here already, ransoming data, it sounds like a shoplifting or something, but it's really serious business. This and what you see now is all data already from 2 years back, and the numbers have grown not by a percentage, but by a factor already everywhere around the world. And Canada is there in the second line. I'm unsure who drew up these tables, but be aware that this goes for the Netherlands as well. So it's everywhere and everybody has to deal with it. It's not even limited to the EU or however big the EU is or to Canada as such. It's a global issue that we have to deal with. And it's serious. It's also for the IT guys like myself in IT security, it's a very interesting field of study, because it's really an arms race on the technology side. So it's really interesting to see what the other side now will again pull off as a next trick, etc., and try to counter that. But yeah, an interesting field of study. If you're a victim of ransomware, you don't really care about the technology side of things. You will just want to get it solved. And there's many difficulties to prevent on the one hand, ransomware break-ins, and on the other hand to resolve whenever you find yourself without your data. How to do that? That's very difficult, even for technologists, because there's so many modes of operations to deal with. There's normal ransomware already for, well, maybe 5 years or more lying around. I've been with clients that had been victim of simpler versions of ransomware, and they have recovered from it. Nowadays, I wouldn't be sure that any organization would really be able to recover. And apart from normal ransomware, there's also what's called wiperware, which means that your data seems to be ransomed, but then if you pay up, then the counterpart will just say, well, yeah, okay, thanks for the Bitcoin payment, but we did delete your data anyway, so we're off now, and you're on your own. So that's a bad one. And what we also see is sort of a double whammy. You get ransomed for your data, but also your data is copied out first, and then the bad guys will ransom you again for not selling off your, for example, privacy-sensitive data on the black market. So you have to pay double for it to be safe. A thing that is growing now in the world of ransomware is also that it's not just IT, the office IT, the laptops and the SAPs of this world that are hit by ransomware. And it's also not that any company can sort of isolate those systems, because a lot of organizations nowadays also interact with their OT systems, be that process factories, like chemical plants or electricity plants or so. Those companies get hit from both sides. And the entry point can be on both sides. And actually, I've encountered that in the Netherlands as well, where the water boards, the waterschap was hit by ransomware, and actually it entered on their OT side, just some pumping system somewhere out there in the polder that got hit by ransomware, and from that it went all the way through the offices. And it can be the other way around. Some of you might be mature enough to even remember Stuxnet, where in Iran a nuclear facility was hit. That really sort of woke many up to the issue. This was a very complicated thing to pull off in the first place, and the Dutch played a not so good part in that. But it really woke people up to the risks of being hit by ransomware. And it's quite easy for adversaries to get a foot in the door. That's the problem that we have today. A lot of entry is through just phishing, gaining access, gaining just a toehold within your networks, etc., via maybe some innocent end user sitting somewhere in administration, just for only once clicking on a bad link in an email or so. If you look at the University of Maastricht case, for example, this was the case. Weak access management is also an entry point where accounts aren't closed off quickly enough after personnel leaves the company, for example. Also, that is very hard to protect against. And of course, there's also lack of training, lack of awareness of what might be early warning signals of ransomware break-ins or other break-ins. And the problem with all these things is it involves people and technology, but people using technology just not perfectly enough. And the status of your IT security in general, well, there's hardly any companies that I can think of that really have their IT security house on order. So that's really a problem when you would want to prevent ransomware from breaking in. Let's see, next slide. Yeah, as said, about every case has something unique, and from a technology perspective, that's interesting, but from a preventative, defensive perspective, that's a bad thing. And also, a lot of organizations aren't focused on fighting ransomware only, whereas the adversaries are, of course, in the business of trying to plant ransomware just for their day jobs. So we're really fighting an asymmetric war there. So as it says here, well, with an old Skoda and me behind the wheel, what are my chances? So what would your chances be against really professional businesses, sometimes even state-sponsored businesses from other nation states trying to break into your company? Very often just for the money. On the other side, those just for the money attacks might also be, in the longer run, being pulled off much wider. There was this SolarWinds hack. This was a regular hack, it wasn't ransomware, but there too, it turned out that already a year and a half ago, the very same form of attack was pulled off just as a sort of a pilot to figure out whether it would work, etc. Go back, perfect your pilot, and then roll it out to via SolarWinds in this case. So this happens with ransomware as well. The technological developments on the attacker side go much faster than on the defense side.
Can I ask you to slowly wrap up, because you're way past the 5 minutes.
Yeah, I know. What you can do is a lot, and a lot of these phrases that you see here on the people, both on the people process, but particularly those latter side things, the process and technology side, will be done by your IT department. But as an organization, you really need to be aware that everybody, so also on the people side, will do their thing and be alert, etc. And that's very hard to really perfect. It's all the usual stuff in IT security, but you have to do it even more perfectly than you do today. And as said, well, perfectly today hardly happens. And the devil is in the detail. And it's not that these attackers will try to it will take months to figure out how to get in. They will take months to figure out how your internal organization runs on IT, and they are better at determining that than the organization itself. Well, it's not when, but if, or it's not if, but when you're hit, then you can do something. My advice still is, well, you better pay up. That's easier. You really literally get a WhatsApp app group help desk from the attacker side, and they will guide you through the process of how to obtain Bitcoin, how to pay them, how to get your files back, etc. It's really a good service model that they have there. And on the other hand, if you don't want to pay, well, you might not survive that, and very probably you will not survive that. But and then if you think, well, we already do have all sort of protections in place, aren't we just immune to the stuff? No, you're not. That's really something. It's an arms race. We aren't winning, and anything that you can pull off will take even more costs and to pull off, and then still just one needle will ruin all of your haystack. So that's really problematic. My pressing need is to convince you that the longer you wait, the longer you think that you won't be hit. Why us? Well, it's not why us, it's why not you, and the attackers will just shoot some buckshot and see wherever they hit anything. The longer you wait, the harder it will be to get up to snuff with your protection. So
thank you.
And if you wait, that's too bad. So conclusion, be prepared, please be prepared and prepare yourself and be aware so that you can respond quickly and maybe save your organization.